So, tying in with Mother's Day, I thought I'd talk about orchids, and it's such a large topic and so much to know. And feel free to ask questions as we go through. You might have specific questions or problems you're having with your orchids. I'll just do a general overview on what they like and how to grow them, etc. And at the end, if you've got any other questions, then feel free to ask. Probably the most well-known orchid, and it has been for a number of years, it's a cool climate orchid. It's the Cymbidium Orchid. And we generally bank on them flowering for Mother's Day. At this time of the year, there's limited colour range, so we can't get, the full range of larger flowers and smaller flowers. The growers just don't have them this early in the season. They are long flowering. They're probably one of the most popular plants for that reason. And being a cold climate orchid, you can leave them outside for most of the year while they're not flowering, and then bring them indoors and enjoy the flowers through the winter when they are flowering. Generally, you get around about a month to 6 weeks flowering out of the orchid, which is a long time for a plant. And obviously, the older the plant gets, the more spikes it generally gets, and the longer flowering period you'd have. Probably one of the easiest orchids to grow. They're quite tolerant of cold outside. While they're actually flowering, as I say, people bring them indoors, but the rest of the year they can stay outside, providing they're kept out of really bad weather. They're not the sort of plant that you would leave out in the rain or out in the hot sun through the rest of the year, because the sun, A, is going to burn the leaves, and bleach the leaves so that they don't look very nice. And also, if they're out in the rain, they get too wet. One thing that orchids generally, as a whole, hate is really wet, saturated conditions. They prefer drier conditions than wetter conditions. So when you do have them outside for the rest of the year, try to keep them protected. Some people put them underneath a tree, which is okay because that's providing shade. Sometimes it doesn't protect them from too much rain, or particularly the cold. You have to be careful of frost. They are susceptible to frost damage in a really cold climate. So I think probably the best place to have them throughout the year is under a patio that's reasonably well lit. It's dry and it's sort of manageable with the temperature. If you've got them outside, it's a really cold winter, then they can often be affected by the frost. Under a patio, you can also manage the watering, so you can assess them depending on the time of the year and see how the plant's going for water. One of the reasons they grow orchids in bark, it's a specialised sort of potting mix. One of the reasons they put them into bark mixes is for drainage, because the plants generally don't like to be too wet. And you can get different sizes and grades in the bark according to the type of orchids that you're growing. So you can sort of manage the watering of the Cymbidium orchids in a patio sort of situation. It keeps them out of the rain, keeps them out of the cold, keeps them out of the frost particularly, and keeps them drier. So they're probably one of the easiest orchids to grow, and they come in a whole range of flower colours, and they come in various sizes in the flowers. Some varieties have a weeping flower habit, which lend themselves to growing in, say, a hanging basket, or growing in a pot that's elevated. Come through in the reds, the pinks, the whites. There's a whole range of colours, and you treat them all the same way. One of the things that often the plant will let you know if it's not growing in the right conditions. A lot of people have problems where the leaves go black, almost like an ink sort of spotting on the leaves. That comes down to, a lot of people assume it's a disease or a virus in the plant. It actually comes down to how the plant's been cultivated. So if you've got it in the wrong spot where it's getting overwatered, or it's not getting enough light, or if it's exposed to too much hot sun, then you tend to get a lot of that spotting on the leaves. And the only way to fix that really is to cut out the damage as it occurs.
So how often do you water?
That's an often asked question. So it's a matter of getting a feel for how quickly the plant's drying out. Through the summer months, I'd be inclined to water, depending on where you've got it, probably maybe 2 to 3 times a week. And when you do water, you water thoroughly so the water runs right through. Because it's a very coarse potting mix, the water just drains through very quickly. So you want to be sure that you're wetting it enough so that the water's watering the entire root system. If you water it too little, then the water doesn't get down to where the roots are at the bottom of the pot. So a good heavy watering through those really hot days, I'd say 2 to 3 times a week. In the winter months, you can almost ease right back. In the building here where we have them, it's a heated building. And of course, if you've got them inside with heaters going, central heating going, plants can kind of dry out quicker, particularly when it's flowering. So I would think probably a good soaking once a week in a heated room. If it was outside, probably again, maybe once every 10 days or so would be enough. But when they are watered, you need to water them thoroughly so that the whole root system is watered. Probably the more popular ones are what they call Phalaenopsis orchids or moth orchids, and they come in a whole range of colours now as well. They're breeding them where they're getting a lot of variation in the flowers. You get them with stripes in the flowers, or you know, a really deep burgundy sort of flower, or pink flowers. The whites are always probably the more popular because white being a fairly staple sort of colour is, and it suits most sort of houses. It's probably one of the most popular ones. Again, they're easy to grow, easy indoor plants to grow, can only be kept inside. They won't grow outside, particularly through the cold weather in winter. It does affect the leaf and the flower growth. Inside they need a warm, bright, lit spot. So near a window with maybe a light curtain fabric on it to block the hot sun through the summer. The further away you get from the window, the poorer the light is generally. And if you want to keep them flowering, these can flower up to about 3 or 4 months a year, which is a very long time for a plant. If you want to keep them flowering, you need to keep them in bright light, but not hot sun. So sun can do 2 things. It can burn the flowers, and it can also burn the leaves. Sometimes you see the leaves where they get these big sort of spots, brown spots on the leaves, often indicating the plant's getting too much sun. The other thing you need to be careful of near a window inside through the winter, the outside glass can be very cold, and if you have the plant too close to the glass, that cold can carry through and affect the plant as well. So it's okay to have them on a windowsill, but just be conscious of the temperatures outside, that it's not sitting directly against the glass because it can affect the plant as well.
Can it get too hot through the glass?
Yes, you need to be careful in the summer. Yeah.
Not the winter. The winter sun's not.
Winter's no problem because the sun's not that hot, unless you've got a sunroom that tends to get really hot. But I would think in the winter time you get away with plenty of light. In the summer you'd have to move it further away. A lot of people have problems with them getting to reflower. Once they've flowered once, then to get them to flower again is difficult. That comes down to having them with plenty of light and also giving them some food to try and promote flowering as well. So it's important that you feed your orchids. And
repotting?
Generally, most orchids don't like to be over-potted because they haven't got an extensive root system, and because they don't like a lot of water, they don't necessarily need to be in a big pot. The pot needs to be big enough, I guess, to support the plant. These are often top heavy when they're flowering and can fall over. So it's a good idea to sit them in, say, a ceramic pot, to prevent that from happening, providing they're not sitting in a saucer of water or the bowl of water when they're directly into that pot. But they don't necessarily need to be repotted on a regular basis. The bark really and the soil they're in is just there to support the plant. It's not, it's not the sort of thing that grows very quickly and needs to be repotted very quickly.
Moss is sort of green too.
Yes, yeah, so that's generally sphagnum moss. So some growers grow them in pure sphagnum, nothing else. Other growers put them into an orchid bark. Most of our suppliers here tend to grow them in the bark. It's a bit easier to manage than the sphagnum. The sphagnum can sometimes become too wet, and the plant ends up.
It's hard to know how wet or how dry.
Correct.
The glass, like vases that you need to repot.
Well, the trick and the trap you can fall into with those vases, a lot of stores sell them with the plant in a vase.
Yeah.
There's no drainage in those vases, which makes it very difficult to water.
Yeah.
Because it's like a terrarium. If you fill it up with water, you just got to fill up like a bucket. Yeah. And the worst thing you can do to an orchid is drown it.
So, I've been very careful not to overwater it.
No.
For that reason.
But it makes it difficult to water.
It's very hard to judge.
It's hard to judge. Yeah. And then again, if they're in sphagnum as well, the sphagnum keeps them wet. Yeah. So ideally, you'd probably sit them in or grow them in a pot. If you want to have them in the vase, then I'd sit the pot into the vase, take them out when you want to water them. Makes it a lot easier, and it's generally better for the plant.
And you might be going to answer this question, but after they have flowered, will you tell us about pruning, what to do?
So if you look from these all the way up the stem, there's buds. Yes. The label's in the way there. So there's a bud there, there's a bud there, there's a bud there, and there's a bud there. Yep. Now, beyond that point, then you've got your flowers. What the recommended thing to do is to prune it. I mean, you can prune it anywhere on the stem where the buds are, but it's better to prune it high up on the stem. So in this case, that one there would be the highest point. You prune above that point, just chop it off, and over a period of weeks, it'll start reshooting another flower spike from that point. Once the green stem is browned off, and you may get 2 or 3 lots of flowers out of that. Once the green stem has gone brown and brittle, then it's finished. Yes. Then you have to cut it off at the base completely, right down where it originates, and then you wait to get another flower spike low down, which might take a little while. But if you've got them in the right conditions, they should flower. Some customers we've had have said they've been flowering continuously, year in, year out. They tick all the boxes. They've got them in the right spot, and that encourages the flowers. So I like a little bit of warmth. They don't need really hot room or anything, but bright light is probably one of the most important things. So for those people that haven't got a lot of space, they're a bit more delicate. Same sort of plant, treat them exactly the same way. The flowers are smaller and the leaves are smaller. They're quite compact in their growth habit. Some people have a number of plants in the one pot, so you may get a bowl, like a round bowl for instance, and wanted to fill it up with flowers, and they look very effective if you do that. The same rule applies. I'd be inclined to leave them in the pots they're in rather than taking them out of the pot and then repotting them into the bowl. One of the things when you take them out of the pot and start fiddling with the root system, then you can upset the flowering. Flowers will drop off. But you can mass plant them in, say, a bowl, but I'd leave them in the pot. You could probably dress up the top of the bowl with sphagnum, just so it decorates it, and so you can't see the pot. But again, you'd have to be conscious of the watering. And
take the pot out?
Take the sphagnum out, take the pot out, water it, put it back. It's a bit more fiddly, but they'll appreciate it more. This is another type of indoor orchid. Those really can only be grown inside, but I wouldn't recommend. Maybe in the summer you could get away with them, on a patio, but in the winter months they definitely want to be indoors. This is what they call dancing lady orchid or Oncidium Orchid. They have very unusual flowers and a range of sizes and colours in the flowers. A bit like the Phalaenopsis in the sense you tend to get just one spike at a time. Occasionally they throw 2 or 3. But the flowers last for a long time as well. Treat them the same way as the Phalaenopsis. So plenty of light, don't overwater them, well-drained soil, in a bright position indoors really. The leaves are more like the Cymbidium type leaf, but the flowers are somewhere in between. So very unusual colours. I was going to mention a little bit about feeding of orchids. It's a popular and important thing. And there's various brands on the market, various ways to feed, whatever is more convenient really for you. Probably one of the easiest is slow release fertiliser like Osmocote. And Osmocote now are making specific ones for orchids. This is a general orchid food, so you can use it for any types of orchid. It's a slow release fertiliser, feeds over about a 3 to 4 month period. So it's easy if you're repotting or you want to just add some fertiliser to the top of the pot, forget about it, then that's probably the most convenient one. There is also more the natural sort of fertilisers. That's a pellet. If you know Dynamic Lifter, it's a bit like that, but a smaller pellet. This is easy to add to the top of the pot or mix it in with the soil again. Doesn't have an odour like Dynamic Lifter, and feeds over an extended period of time as well. So that's a bit more natural if you don't want it. A lot of people these days aren't wanting to use chemicals for various reasons. You can get liquids which you mix with water. That's the same company that do the pellets, just a different form. So some people find it more convenient mixing up liquids, just a little bit in the watering can. Might be easier in your sense, make it a bit easier for you. Campbell's fertilisers have been around for many, many years. They do a whole range of different brands of fertiliser. They do a 2-part orchid food. So one, and they're both soluble, one is used to encourage flowers, the other is used to encourage growth. So you use these at different times of the year depending on the plant. So if it's a Cymbidium Orchid, through the warmer months of the year you'd probably use the growth one, and then you switch over to this one probably around about April to start promoting the flowering. So they're more specific, you can target certain times of the year for your feeding. Manutec are another company that make a whole range of different types of fertilisers. So they make one to encourage flowers, they make one which is more just a general orchid food. Again, soluble. These come with a spoon, which makes it easy to measure out the amount. And some people argue that you use tepid water in the winter time when you water your orchids. I don't think there's any advantage in that. I don't think it really worries the plant whether the water's cold or tepid. But it might make it easier to dissolve the powder in warmer water. Let's mention a little bit about pests. The main enemy of Cymbidium orchids are scale insects. And if you know scale, it's like a little brown or black lump that can be anywhere on the plant. It's a sap-sucking insect, and over time the numbers build up on the plant, and with the more feeding on the plant they can cause a lot of damage. You get a lot of dieback and brown leaves, and often a lot of sticky sort of substance around the plant. As the insects feed, they excrete sugars. So scale, you have to use an oil-based spray to control it. And there's various types of oil on the market. You've probably heard of white oil. This is made from neem oil. Neem oil is a natural product which is safe to use on any plants. And the way the oils work, they come in contact with the insect, so you have to be thorough when you're spraying. If the insects are under the leaves or on top of the leaves, you have to make sure you get any part of the plant. The oil smothers the insect and suffocates it. So if you happen to miss any of the plant where the scale is, then you're still going to get the numbers building up again. So you need to be thorough if you do get it. You can use a combination of a damp cloth. If you get a wet, damp cloth and wipe the leaves down, that removes some of the insect in the process, and then spray afterwards. That also helps as well. If they're outside, you need to be conscious of snails and slugs, because they can climb the plant through wet weather particularly. You've got this lovely orchid that's just coming to flower. The flower's just about to open. You come back the next day and the snails have been on it overnight and all the flowers have been chewed. The big holes in the flowers, big holes in the leaves. So if they are outside, it's a good idea to maintain snail bait around the plant. Keep an eye on the flower spikes as they're starting, just to protect them. Inside the house, when you're growing things like Phalaenopsis, there's an insect called mealybug, and it's like white cotton, which you get on the leaves and down on the crown of the plant, even on the flower stems itself. Mealybug's another sap-sucking insect, and it's a very virulent insect. It's very persistent, so you need to spray it as soon as you see it, before it gets too much of a hole on the plant, because once it does, it tends to become very hard to control it. They're very distinctive. They look like white cotton. Some people get a cotton bud and they dip it in methylated spirits, and then you can dab individual insects. It's an old method of controlling insects instead of using insecticides. It's fairly laborious, but it does help. If you keep the plants well fed and watering correctly, it makes them a bit more resistant to any of the pests that they might encounter. They're not prone to many diseases. Occasionally you might get a little bit of mildew on the leaves, particularly in, say, a bathroom situation where you've got high humidity. That encourages mildew on the leaves of plants. So generally, if you give them a bit more air circulation, that tends to help with the control of the mildew. If you put them into a corner where there's no general air movement around, then they're more prone to getting mildew on them. So I mentioned about the orchid mix. That's a specific mix. It's a graded bark. Some people ask, why can't I just use normal mulch? Mulch hasn't been composted like the orchid barks have. So these are done over a very long period of time, and they've had all the tannins taken out of the orchid, out of the bark itself, so there's no risk to the plant when you repot it. So always use an orchid mix. You can use the sphagnum moss, bearing in mind that sphagnum moss can be a bit damp, it can keep the plant too wet. And it's hard to measure with sphagnum on how much water the plant actually is getting. And it dries out and then it's wet again. And it's a bit tricky. It looks nice in the pot, but it doesn't necessarily help the plant grow that well. Just a tip, when you've got new spikes coming up, it's always worth putting a stake on the flower, because particularly with Cymbidium orchids, as the flower gets bigger, it tends to fall over. And if you've got it outside, it's a windy day, the flower can snap. And you wait 12 months for this lovely flower to come up, and then you've lost it, in the first windstorm. So always stake the flower and tie it up as the plant flower grows, just to give it a bit of support.